Week 2 is in the books, and we finally got the upset that we had been talking about that might be coming, that felt like something was inevitably going to happen. I don't think we ever thought that Northern Illinois would beat Purdue or Northern Illinois would beat Notre Dame, but it felt like we were due for an upset. Welcome back to the Walk-On Redshirts podcast. If you're not doing so already, make sure to follow us on social media. Make sure to follow us. Give us a rate. Give us a subscribe. Listen to the podcast and do anything you can to share it. Week 2's in the books, William.
Week 2 is in the books. It's in the books. We made it. And shout out to the head coach for NIU, Thomas Hammock.
Hammock, I believe.
Hammock. For answering.
That's America's coach right there. That's America's coach.
He's America's coach. Sideline reporters, I need you to do a better job with your questions post-game. The sideline reporter for that game literally asked him, where are all these emotions coming from right now? He just beat the number 5 team in the freaking country on a last second on a field goal that, and then had to stop Notre Dame, who got into field goal range. And you want to ask him where these emotions are coming from? I mean, I know you have a hard job. I'm being a little critical, but come on.
Sideline reporters, so they have a chance to figure out what that question is going to be, because once they make the field goal, you got to start thinking in your mind, what's that going to be? Like, what are you going to ask him? You got to start figuring that out, and you've got time. It's not like they block the kick to return it to win.
Right.
They had a couple minutes in real time to actually figure that out, 30 seconds in game time, but there was 3 or 4 minutes while they got a chance to do that. We'll get into that game here, but let's start off with, some news from last week. Florida State is just continuing to drop everything.
They somehow lost on a bye week. Jake.
They announced Jalen Lucas is out for the year. They lose 2 defensive line commitments. One flips to Texas, immediately. I mean, I don't want to say the wheels are falling off for Mike Norvell, but this is not a good situation for him right now. This is on a very downward trend.
And it feels like it, because their recruiting class, they had 3 defensive linemen committed. They now have 1. I believe the Javion Hilson guy is trending towards Texas. Myron Charles, the defensive tackle, already committed to Texas. But they've dropped, I think, to 36 in the country in their recruiting class. Now, we've got until December, but that is not what you want for Florida State. That is not Florida State's program in the past 30 years. This is not what we're used to. So it's not looking good for the Seminoles. It really isn't. And Mike Norvell is going to have to hit this recruiting trail hard right now. Hey, maybe he can do that, because I feel like the season is just not going to go really well. But hey, it's only been 2 games, Jake. It's only been 2 games. A lot crazier things have happened, right?
Yeah. And this feels like a major need to bounce back this week. They play Memphis. A win, and you can start to write your season. Obviously, a chance at the college football playoffs is nearly gone. It's hard to think that they're going to have a chance. Even if they go 10-2, you could justify that if you go on a 10-game win streak, that you're a hot team and that you can ride that in the playoff. But you'd have to win out. And right now, I have a hard time seeing them go undefeated the rest of the way. Memphis is not going to be an easy game. We have that on our slate to pick in our weekly 10 this week. And Memphis is going to give them a fight. Memphis is only a 7.5-point dog, especially when this game is being played in Tallahassee. 7.5 points is not a lot right there.
It really isn't, especially for a team that's struggling to get offense and against a team, like you're saying, that's really good. And Jake, if we look at the rest of their schedule, it doesn't get much easier. I mean, Memphis is a top-tier G5 school. Then you have Cal, who just marched into Auburn, Alabama, and stunned them. You have SMU. We don't know what they're going to be. Preston Stone's out probably for the rest of the year, not due to injury, but due to play. Jennings, I'm forgetting his first name, was named the starter. And he looked good against BYU. Not great, but good. Then you turn around, you've got Clemson at home. You get a bye week. You get Duke. That looks like a much more winnable game than I would have originally thought going into this year. Duke struggled more than I would have anticipated. Their wide receivers have not played really well. Then you got Miami.
Now, don't sleep on that Cal game either. Cal just beat Auburn.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah, they just marched into Auburn and stunned them. So, I mean, you it's not looking good for them in the first half of the slate. Then you have Duke, you have Miami, which right now everybody's really high on Miami. I think we pump the brakes a little bit. That yes, they did just mollywop
Miami's more
Florida.
talented than Florida State right now. As of this moment
Absolutely.
right now,
Absolutely.
Miami is more talented.
And they should be favored. The Florida State Notre Dame game, November 9th, is going to be a disgusting, awful, terrible game.
Take the
to
under
watch.
now. Take the under.
the
Whatever
under.
the point total is, take the under.
Yeah. And then honestly, that might be a game where both starting quarterbacks currently, Riley Leonard and DJ Uiagalelei,
Neither of them play.
Yeah, they might not be starters at that point. Charleston Southern and Florida. That will be another just miserable game. And
Florida, that could be a game of neither of you are going to the bowl game. So this is the final game of your season. So who knows what happens there? But Florida State right now, not a good trend. We'll see what happens this weekend. But another team that's not on a good trend right now, Colorado. I don't know what to make of this program right now. They have so much hype. The media creates it. A lot of people that really follow college football understand that Colorado was not a national contender. The casual fan was the one who was putting the bets on them to be national contenders. They see Shedeur Sanders. They see Travis Hunter. Both those players are immensely talented. There's no question about that. Problem is that you need to have, in theory, 9 more guys on your offense and 10 more guys on your defense that are also talented that can stop other teams with well put together cultures and systems. And Shedeur Sanders walks off the sideline with 2 minutes left. Now, they said it was concussion protocol or an injury of some sort, but it did not really feel like that.
Yeah, no, that was bad. And then in the press game conference, Jake, it got worse. And it'd be one thing if Shedeur got in there and threw everybody on the bus. He threw the offensive line on the bus. He threw the running backs on the bus. And honestly, indirectly, he threw the defensive line on the bus. I mean, he what did he say again? He said, how many people were touching Dylan Raiola? So you're telling me your defensive line sucks, your offensive line sucks, your running backs suck. You got 2 good wide receivers. So, I didn't hear him say anything about that. But then what made matters worse is Deion Sanders, who just so happens to be Shedeur's dad, steps in front of a microphone and says the same thing, Jake. So, it's encouraged. It's not – so, it'd be one thing if a player gets up there, he's disgruntled, he's mad, he says some bull crap. Hey, that gets solved in the locker room. But then when the head coach gets up there too, what does that say as a player? Hey, I was recruited to come here through the transfer portal, but I was recruited to come here. I'm coached by these guys. Why is coach playing favorite with his son and Travis Hunter? Why are we being treated any different? Maybe if he spent more time coaching us, worrying about us, maybe we'd be better. Maybe we'd be doing what he needs us to do. So the culture problem is they're all worried about the hype. Perceivably, they're all worried about the hype. They're all worried about getting people to show up to games, the entertainment factor of the game. Yes, this is the entertainment business, but part of entertainment, Jake, is a good product, and you do not have a good product. And I try to tell you, we try to tell you all that when they struggled against North Dakota State, a good FCS school, but they struggled against North Dakota State. It's not going to be good for them this year. They ain't making a bowl game. I'll go ahead and say it after 2 games. I can overreact. They're not making a bowl game.
Yeah, I'm not very high on Colorado right now. I have a hard time thinking that they're going to be able to finish out this season. The offensive line is maybe a hair improved than last year. Last year, they were very bad. This year, they're not much better. Nebraska's a good team. You got to give credit to Nebraska. They are a very good team. Matt Rule knows how to build a program. He knows how to build a culture. Matt Rule has won at each of his stops, at least in college, that he has been to. He helped build Temple into a strong program. He helped build Baylor into a strong program. He's doing the same thing in Nebraska. Anybody who didn't think he was going to be able to do this, you're just missing the obvious points here. What he did at Carolina is not what he's doing in Nebraska. And he is the right guy for the job in Nebraska. Not Shedeur.
Well, and honestly,
Deion is not the right guy for Colorado.
Right. And after seeing what other coaches have done at Carolina, I don't know if we can blame that all on Matt Rule.
Yeah, you're not wrong there. But I don't know if Deion is the right guy to coach at a program like this, because at Colorado, you can't just out-talent guys without having a strong offense and defensive line. Your offensive line playing in the Big 12 is so crucial because the amount of talented guys that are on other teams, let alone if he were to go and try and play in the SEC, because then you actually have to recruit. Deion doesn't do in-home visits. Deion has 7 commits in the 2025 recruiting class. I don't know if he is shooting so high where he's going only for the big fish, or if he's relying on the transfer portal to help bring guys in, or what the full-on exact strategy for recruiting is. He obviously brings recruits in, but he brings in a handful of players and seems like he tries to fill too many gaps with the transfer portal. The whole offensive line was rebuilt with the transfer portal, with the exception of one 5-star left tackle who is a true freshman starting a left tackle, which is very rare in college football these days.
Right. Well, and Jake, Shedeur wants to get in front of a microphone. Again, I keep saying that, but you trashed offensive lineman, you're hurting me right here. You're hurting me right here. But the pick 6 he threw, I don't know if anybody's seen this video. There was not a soul near that man. He bad timing, bad throw, nothing behind it. I mean, it was an easy pick 6. I mean, they read it like a book. You can maybe he was gun shy because he had been hit already. Yada yada yada. I don't want to hear it anymore. All I hear is ifs and buts, bunch of excuses. I don't want to hear ifs and buts anymore out of Colorado. Freaking nut up, learn how to play some freaking football, and go out there and win a ball game. Like I don't want to hear it. Like, you know what's in front of you. The thing you should be doing as a leader. He has that big ass L on his chest. Pardon my language. You're supposed to be a leader. How about you go out there and encourage your offensive linemen, build them up instead of getting in front of everybody and tearing them down? Don't you think they know they freaking sucked that game? Like that, it doesn't make any sense. Like that L needs to change. That L needs to stand for loss or loser, not for leader.
Yeah, it feels like the accountability is being tossed around rather than somebody taking ownership. Like you said, leader. Shedeur is viewed as the leader, at least by the outside perception. What he is in the locker room, I don't know. But if you are the leader, you should not be throwing other players under the bus saying we lost because of him or her or whatever else. Look, Shedeur, you touch the ball the second most in every game besides the center.
Yep.
It's time for you to, to put up and, take some accountability and understand that, hey, maybe you didn't play your best. It's okay. Right. You own up to it, saying you didn't play your best, that we could have done things better. There's no need to go and throw anybody under the bus. And when you think about moving on to the next level, every NFL scout has seen that. Every NFL scout has seen that. And I guarantee there are no scouts that looked at it and go, yep, that's the guy I want in my locker room. That's the guy we're going to spend a first-round pick on. Some guy that's going to throw other players under the bus when we lose. Yeah,
and you know what, Jake? In Colorado's defense, everybody's piling on him right now. I don't know how true that story is about Deion asking the band not to play when Shedeur scores a touchdown. I don't think that's a true story.
I don't think that was made buy up. Into it either.
I haven't seen anybody provide evidence to it. So, again, it's really easy to dunk on them right now. They're giving you enough ammo that you don't have to make stuff up.
The problem was it was believable because
very believable.
That's just how Colorado has acted over the last 18 months, that it would not shock me if that is something that ever happened. Not saying it has, but it wouldn't shock me if Coach Prime went to the band and goes, you know what? We're playing Shedeur's song every time he scores. We're not playing the fight song.
And Jake, again, this is not just a frustration thing. This was being said when they were doing a live stream before the season even started. Shedeur and Travis Hunter were talking trash about the offensive line. And I mean, like, you want these guys to protect you and to fight for you, and you're over there just slandering them and laughing at them. Like, man, there's no motivation, but it's all intrinsic at that point. Hey, we're just out there to play for ourselves. Like, we're not playing for that dude. There's a divide.
Let's move on. Let's talk about the biggest game of the week that ended up being an absolute blowout. Texas goes into Ann Arbor and absolutely throttles them. 24-3 at halftime. Could have very well easily been 31-3 had it not been for a ticky-tack holding call. I would say. Ticky-tack holding call. Could have been 31-3. Quinn Ewers throws for 200 yards in the first half. Donovan Edwards finishes the game with 8 carries for 41 yards, 1 catch for 2 yards. And, just not a good day. I mean, he's the cover of the NCAA or the college football game. I think we all had suspicions Michigan wasn't going to be very good. Davis Warren kind of confirmed that he is not a great quarterback. He actually was 4 or 5 passing the ball downfield. The problem was, I'm sure they tried to throw it downfield a little bit more, but nobody could get open, and he was getting rushed. He's not very mobile. The offense just was stagnant. They couldn't do anything.
Right. And then when they finally start moving the ball, your tight end decides not to tuck the ball away and fumble it off his leg, which that was a rough. That was. I mean, I'm slandering him a little bit, but that was a tough look. Yeah, I tweeted out in the middle of the game, "Where's Waldo?" with Donovan Edwards' face on it, because where is he? He ran the ball, like you said, 8 times. He ran the ball 11 times against Fresno State for 2.5 yards a carry. Now, he did have a decent yards per carry. This guy, I think he had 5.5 yards per carry. But your best player needs to touch the ball more than what's that?
Yeah, he finished with 5.1, but he touched the ball 9 times.
Yeah, your best player needs to touch the ball more than 9 times. I mean, all offseason they talked about how great he was going to be. And where is he? Is he hurt? I don't know. But this has to make you think about last year. Last year we were saying the same thing. Where's Donovan Edwards? Why is Blake Corum the only one touching the ball? Why are they not giving him any looks? Maybe it's because he's just not that good.
He has explosive playmaking ability. We saw him in the national championship game score 2 touchdowns, 2 very long runs against Washington. But last year, you could justify saying that Donovan Edwards wasn't playing much because you had Blake Corum, who was an absolute workhorse back. He was able to control the game. He didn't fumble. He was explosive when he needed to be. Donovan Edwards just lacks the consistency, it seems like, because they're giving Khalil Mullins, carries as well. They almost went 1 for 1. Mullins finished with 6 carries. Donovan Edwards finished with 8. Mullins doesn't have any catches, so 6 touches to 9 touches. I mean, they didn't really use him. I mean, Colston Loveland is a fantastic tight end. I mean, he is fantastic. He's clearly the number one, receiving threat on that team. But this Michigan defense, we heard that they were still going to be very good, and Texas just shredded them. They had the biggest thing for them was when I went back and looked around halftime, Texas was actually getting stuffed early on the drives. First and second down, they weren't doing very well, but they finished 10 of 16 on third down plays. And they had 16 third down attempts, and they converted 10 of them.
In that first drive, I don't think they had a third down less than 7 yards. I mean, it was unbelievable in that first drive. I mean, 3rd and 15, 3rd and 10, 3rd and 7, 3rd and 8. And they just kept converting. They were methodical. Texas did what we didn't think Texas would be able to do, and that's have a methodical, non-explosive drive. So
they actually scored on a 3rd and 11 before it was called back for a holding call.
Right.
I have it up right here. But it was a downfield pass from the 24-yard line. Quinn Ewers found his guy in the end zone, then the holding call. But the first drive, 3rd and 13, they converted. 3rd and 5, they converted. 3rd and 7, they converted. That is demoralizing for a defense.
Oh, yeah. Well, and you're exhausted. I mean, that's a long drive at that point. But I have a very, very fun fact for you, Jake. A very, very fun fact for you. Without looking, I know you already have, but I'm just going to say it.
You've put this fact out multiple times on the internet.
Oh, I love it. I love it. So I'm just going to put it out for anybody who hasn't seen it yet. The fun fact is the leading rusher in the entire game was freshman receiver for the Texas Longhorns, Ryan Wingo. He had 1 rush for 55 yards, and he led the entire game in rushing. So if you want to take anything away negative from Texas is that they could not run the football. Now, no one expects them to run the football very well against Michigan. The defensive line is still great. And
Jaden Blue also got hurt during it too.
Yes. Yep. And but we didn't think Texas was going to come in there and run the ball against Michigan. And Michigan's front did look good. It was everybody else. Will Johnson looked good, but everybody else, where are you? You're supposed to have one of the best defenses in the Big Ten and even in the country. I was calling them elite last week, Jake, on defense, not on offense.
The worst part about having an absolute shutdown corner and not having somebody else on the other side is, you take away one side of the field, but that just means they go to the other side of the field the whole time. If Will Johnson is going guy deep, they're going to go to the underneath guy.
Yeah.
Okay, you can't throw on Will Johnson, but I mean, last week Will Johnson didn't have a great game. He had a pick 6, but when he played Fresno State, there were a couple plays that Fresno was able to beat him on. So Will Johnson's incredible talent, but he's going to get exhausted when they're throwing the ball 35 times a game and they're converting multiple third downs and you're on the field for 9, 10, 11, 12 play drives. Eventually something's going to give. He can't be an absolute lockdown for 40 pass attempts in a game. It's just something's going to give eventually. So Texas, I think they're very clear-cut, a true college football national championship contender. Michigan, I think we can agree that they're going to struggle to be in contention for the playoff. I think bubble team at absolute best, but they don't have an easy enough schedule. I think we're looking at possibly 8 wins for Michigan this year.
Yeah, and they're only going to get 8 wins because their schedule's so easy. But man, I think they might drop one that they shouldn't. I think they might lose to Indiana. I put that out there as well. I mean, I'm very, very high on this Indiana team. But Jake, I think this game, like you said, Texas is who we thought they were. I mean, I had a hot take that I didn't think Texas would make the college football playoff. I still kind of want to stand on that. I don't know if this game didn't tell me enough because I don't think Michigan challenged them where I thought they were weak. So I still think Texas is weak on the back end in pass coverage. And I think they can be exposed that way. And I think we'll find that out when they go through the SEC slate. But I think this game told us even more about Michigan than we had already thought. We already thought that Michigan was going to struggle this year. We already thought that the offense was going to be bad, and the defense, the way the defense was exposed this week, gave me more question marks towards that Michigan roster than I had coming in this week. So this game exposed Michigan more than it said anything about Texas, in my opinion.
I would agree on that. I would agree. Texas, we knew Quinn Ewers should be able to throw the ball. We knew that they were going to have playmakers at wide receiver. The defense, to me, though, has looked pretty solid for the Texas standard. They look better than they were last year. Now, granted, Davis Warren, like we said, is not a fantastic quarterback. We'll learn more about Texas in a couple of weeks. They play Oklahoma, but Jackson Arnold did not look great this past weekend either. But Davis Warren is not somebody that was able to test them downfield, but they were able to intercept 2 passes, and they were able to rush the quarterback, which was good to see because they did lose those 2 defensive tackles last year, and they were able to get to the quarterback. So I think the defense has shown me that they have improved from last year because last year they were getting absolutely torched in the secondary. It seems like they have improved, at least in that aspect. I don't want to say they're like a top 20 secondary, but they are better than what they were last year. I feel confident in saying that.
Yeah. I'm in the still Wolfie camp.
Let's move on to who we know needs to improve significantly after losing at home to Northern Illinois. Notre Dame last week was penciled into the college football playoff.
Yep.
Like everybody was penciling them in, being like, yep, schedule's easy enough. All they got to do is go 11-1 and they're in. Boom, we're done. And then Northern Illinois happens. I wasn't able to watch much of this game because I was at a tailgate, but I was able to pull it up late and I was following the score the whole time. And I was able to go back and watch some plays. And Riley Leonard was not good. And I mean, this defense only holds for so long. I mean, Riley Leonard's interception at the end of the game was pretty bad.
Yeah.
That one in the end zone was pretty bad when he threw it basically into the corner and his receiver almost had no shot at it.
Yep.
You know, Northern Illinois marches down the field, kicks a field goal, which I actually thought that was a first down and not fourth down.
That was a first down. And the fact that they reviewed it and still said it was a fourth down, that was mind-boggling. And, hey, hats off to old Thomas Hammock again, because he could have lost his mind and lost the control of the game, but he didn't. He stayed calm. He could have flipped out on those referees because that was awful. That was a blatant
That was a very bad call. Very, very bad call.
Good Lord. And
it could have cost Northern Illinois the game. Now, granted, they had to play defense. If you can't play defense for 30 seconds, you don't deserve to win that game anyways, because if they move down the field that easy, you don't deserve to win that game. But a couple question marks here from Marcus Freeman. A, why are you attempting a 62-yard field goal? Now, there was some discrepancies. NBC or Peacock had that they still had one timeout. And in real life, they actually didn't have any. So if he had tried to call timeout, he would not have been granted it. So there was a reason why they didn't run another play because, yeah, they had a handful of seconds. But if you run it and you don't get out of bounds, you wouldn't have been granted the timeout.
Right.
But a 62-yard field goal, I don't know about you, but I'm going to take my quarterback throwing a Hail Mary over a college kicker trying to kick a 62-yarder.
Well, what does that tell you about Riley Leonard?
Maybe he does. Well, apparently his non-throwing shoulder is injured.
No way.
Yeah, his non-throwing shoulder was injured during the game, but so he's still expected to play this upcoming weekend. But you've made this point plenty of times. Riley Leonard fit better last year with the Notre Dame team because of the offensive line they had, with the rushing attack they had, the lack of true receiver talent. And this year, Sam Hartman would have been better because of the style of play that they're trying to go with, and that the fact that they don't have a true number one running back. They don't have an Audric Estime on this team. Jeremiah Love's good. He's not Audric Estime.
Yeah, he's not great.
It feels like they could have used a better passing quarterback last year, and they could have done a lot more and been a lot more creative with the running game last year, having a Riley Leonard on the team.
Absolutely. And it's, I think this is, if you want to take another step back, I think this is also showing you transfer portal quarterbacks are not always the answer. Sometimes it is, let's get a guy, let's develop him. Maybe let's get a guy out of high school, and when we lose with Sam Hartman, hey, maybe we sit back and we just go ahead and put the freshman in there. I mean, you go, which is even crazier, Jake. Marcus Freeman watched Riley Leonard play him in person last year, and he still saw after him. I mean, I don't know, like that speaks volumes to what they had in the quarterback room. So maybe that is why they were desperate enough to go in there. But you have to think a school like Notre Dame could get somebody better than Riley Leonard to come play quarterback for him, right?
You would think so. Here's a question. Is Marcus Freeman the answer at Notre Dame?
I'm not ready to – I'm going to sound like an idiot, which is what I do most of the time. But I still think he's a good coach. I still like him. This is his second year ever coaching, or third year?
He's in his third year. He started at 22.
So he's having to learn on the fly at Notre Dame. Like, I don't think he's the answer at Notre Dame. I'll say that. I think he will end up somewhere. I think he'll be a defense coordinator. I think he will get a head coaching job again at some point. I don't think it's going to last very long at Notre Dame. However, like, I like his culture that he's instilling. I like the things that he's about. The decision making is just pretty poor. And then he just hasn't had a good roster. And like, I thought, like, with his personality and the way the team loved him and really rallied around him, that he would be able to build a good roster. And they just haven't done that in South Bend. But the craziest thing about his tenure at Notre Dame is that they've lost 4 games to unranked opponents. They lost to Marshall in 2022, which Marshall ended up going 9-4, winning a bowl game. I think they beat UConn that year. They lost to Stanford that year, who was awful. Stanford went 3-9. They were absolutely terrible. So there's no saving grace on that one. They lost to Clemson last year, which, okay, unranked game. You're still playing Clemson, and that was the start of the playoff DVD for Clemson. And then in IU this year. So 4 games they've lost to an unranked opponent. And all those games, I think they were in the top 15. You can't do that. Maybe not the Stanford game, but you just can't. Like, I don't know. Go ahead.
I still believe that the biggest thing for Marcus Freeman was the lack of coaching experience he had at a premier program before taking over at Notre Dame. He was defensive coordinator for 1 season. Prior to that, he had spent multiple seasons at Cincinnati, and prior to that, he had spent 4 seasons at Purdue when he was under like Darrell Hazel. So they were absolutely terrible at that point. Cincinnati, good program under Luke Fickell, learned from a good coach. But again, you were playing against American Athletic Conference teams. You were playing against Temple. You were playing against the Tulane, Tulsa's North. Temple Talk. Don't ever forget. You're playing against the Tulane, the Tulsa, the UCFs of the world. Now, get it, granted, UCF was, good, but we're not talking about playing a Power 5 schedule every year. You're not playing.
You're not playing NIU at home.
Yeah, not playing NIU at home when you're at Cincinnati. Why would you ever do that?
Yeah,
but they struggled, and when you look back, I believe the 2021 Notre Dame team was the one who actually lost to Cincinnati. Yeah, they were.
Yep.
So,
and I think the most damning thing about this game too is that Notre Dame was beat in the trenches. I mean, NIU, do you know how many yards NIU ran for?
I did not look at this stat number.
190 yards.
Almost
45 carries.
Yards.
Almost 200 yards. They ran for more yards than Notre Dame did on them, and then they almost passed for 200 yards too. And NIU is not built to throw the ball, and they're surely not built to throw the ball against Notre Dame. So they had almost 400 total yards against Notre Dame's stout defense. That don't listen to this 3-Tech pod, but Texas A&M didn't have that good of an offense against that defense. So anyway, and that was at your home. That was in College Station. That wasn't even at South Bend. I couldn't imagine being an SEC school and not being able to be better than NIU, the Huskies. Anyway, they got dominated in the trenches, and I think that's the worst thing about this game. It wasn't even the fact that they lost; it's how they lost. It wasn't like NIU had some fluke things that happened. They stoned them. I mean, they beat them in the trenches. They beat them through the air. You know, it's like our military. Land, air, sea, baby. We're coming for you.
Let's move on to the Oregon game. Boise State and Oregon go wire to wire. Ashton Jeanty, I can never say it. I can't do people's names. How do you say his last name?
Heisman. I call him Jeanty, but I've heard Jeanty lately, but let's just call him Heisman.
He helps carry the Boise State team, rushes for a 70-yard touchdown. The Oregon Ducks continue to struggle, and Boise State almost pulled this game out. They had a real chance. They had a real chance to, and Oregon ends up winning by 3 points. They continue to win by the skin of their teeth. When you look at this game, what does the future hold for Oregon right now?
They need to play with more discipline. The most glaring gap that I'm seeing is that they've had 17 penalties for 134 yards in 2 games. They had 9 for 76 or 86, I believe, against Boise State. You cannot have 17 penalties in 2 games when you're playing Idaho and Boise State. Now, Boise State's a good team. If you're going to struggle, that would be a game in which you struggle. Both of those games are at home, so it's not like there was a crowd factor. Both of those games are against lesser opponents, quote unquote, Idaho being an FCS team again, and Boise State, albeit being very talented, still a group of 5 teams, still should not be competing with national championship favorite Oregon. And then in both weeks, like you see in the box score that Oregon's offense just blew up and they did great and they, tearing it up. But somehow it's a 3-point game. And I don't know who to be scared. I mean, the defense looked decent against Idaho, but again, it's Idaho. But looked terrible against Boise State. The offense has looked about the same in both games. I just don't understand this team. And the only thing I can point at and say, here's your Achilles heel, is that you don't play with any discipline. You get 17 penalties for almost 200 yards in 2 games. I mean, you can't do that against Ohio State. You can't do that against Penn State. You can't do that in the Big Ten. That you will get beat. And it's gonna be bad.
And when you look at their drive summaries, they really didn't ever have a sustained drive in this game.
They scored big plays.
Their most sustained drive was honestly the last drive of the game where they went 11 plays, 61 yards. Yeah. Other than that, their first drives, 3 plays, 8 yards, 3 plays, 4 yards, 3 plays, 72 yards, 5 plays, 6 yards, 1 play, 34 yards, 3 plays, negative 24 yards, 7 plays, 29 yards. Like, they never had a drive more than, I think it was 7 plays. They had 5 plays. 5 plays was their longest drive other than the final field goal. So they either scored quick or they got off the field quick because they were punting the ball. There was no other option. They were scoring or punting in rapid fashion. And you want to talk about boomer bust? That's like the ultimate boomer bust. Like if you go 3 plays and you haven't scored, you're like, might as well try it again next time.
Well, you know what kills drives, Jake?
Penalties.
Now, we're dunking on Oregon right now. If we want to give them a little positive, a little tasty taste of some positivity, you're 2-0. They can't take that away from you. They can't take that away from you, Oregon. You're 2-0. Tyler.
Well, the Oregon secondary played strong too because Maddox Madsen was 17 of 40, 23 incompletions for 148 yards, a 3.7 yard per attempt average. That is
and you still won by
disgustingly
3.
low.
And you still only won by 3. That's what's crazy, Jake.
So, I mean, the secondary of Oregon honestly played pretty strong overall. I mean, when you talk about a quarterback completing less than 50% of his passes, you assume that you're going to win pretty handily. The problem is you had one of the best running backs on the other side of the field who happened to also score 3 touchdowns.
The best. I'm the biggest Ashton Jeanty lover on this podcast, and it's not even close.
So I'm
top 2.
Dylan Gabriel only throws 3 incompletions, but they are really putting him in a position to not throw incompletions.
Yeah, I mean, you can't mess up.
When you think about that, he only had 3 incompletions, but they had how many punts did they have? They had 7 punts. You had 3 incompletions, but you punted the ball 7 times. The math isn't mathing here. That they're not running a system that is going to push the ball downfield, be explosive. Yeah, Oregon has explosive playmakers, but they aren't taking risks. They're playing very safe, it feels like.
Well, Jake, they've also fumbled the ball 4 times, only losing 3, but 2 of those were against Boise State. And again, you want to kill your team, turnovers and penalties, discipline. You want to look at a good team that just couldn't get out of their own way last year. Look at Clemson, and look when they stopped turning the ball over. What happened? They win 5 in a row. You want to struggle in the Big Ten, keep turning the ball over on careless mistakes, and because I don't think Dylan Gabriel's done a pick yet this year.
I do not believe he has,
but they fumbled 4 times. However, we're bashing Oregon. I want to get some light on Ashton Jeanty and that Boise State team because they hung in there. They should have won that game. They really should have won that game. And Ashton Jeanty through 2 games has 459 yards rushing. He's averaging 10.2 yards a carry and has 9 touchdowns. I cannot believe that people are still sleeping on this cat. Like, he is the best running back in the country, and it's not even close. It's not even close, Jake. It's not even close. Look what he did to Oregon. That's all I have to say. Look what he did to Oregon. How many yards did he have against Oregon?
It was like $190 or something like that.
Yeah, that's unbelievable. That is unbelievable. And they knew they were running the ball. I mean, Maddox, like you said, goes freaking 0 for 40. You know you're going to run the ball. The fact that he was able to run the ball 25 times when they threw the ball 40. Penalties. That sustains drives. It gives you more plays. It gives you life, Jake. Penalties. If they shore that up, I think Oregon's back to being good. I think this ship can be righted. I think this ship will be righted. Those are very fixable things. You know, play with discipline. Hands don't jump off sides.
Oregon's got a big game this weekend. They travel to Oregon State. They cannot sleep on the Beavers. They're going to have to play well. This is a rivalry game, so we'll talk about that here in a minute. One last game to talk about. I know you want to give Clemson a little credit right here.
I got to give me some flowers. I got to give them some flowers. Is Clemson back? You know, you hear people out there saying, oh, it's just App State. The people coming into this week were saying, App State's going to upset them. App State's going to cover. Yada, 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 yada. I had to hear it all week, Jake. Well, Cade Klubnik finally looked like the number 2 quarterback in the nation. He finally looked like a 5-star quarterback. 24 for 26. Jake, he completed 13 passes in a row. His 2 incompletions, you know what they were, Jake? He threw the ball away because there was nothing there and he was under pressure. 2 incompletions, both were just throwaways. 24 for 26 for 378 yards, 5 touchdowns. Very accurate on the deep ball, very accurate on the short game, very accurate in the medium game. Ran for 2 touchdowns. They executed the quarterback run perfectly. This is all in one half of football. Let's dump on it some more. Freshman wideouts. So Bryant Wesco and TJ Moore. They had 174 total yards together and 2 touchdowns. Let's add a little bit more to it. This is the most yards and a half in Clemson history. They had 525 yards and a half. Jake. That doesn't happen. The starters didn't play the second half. Phil Maffa did not go back in. He ran for 150 yards. That doesn't happen. The most points in a quarter with 35. They had 35 points in the first quarter. It was immaculate. And then they had the most points in a half with 56. That offense looked like what we wanted that offense to look like last week. That's what the offense, all we heard about all offseason was what this offense was going to do, what these receivers are going to do, what Cade is going to do to take the next step. Jake, it'd be one thing if he was playing a lesser opponent and he still struggled. He did some of the Cade things and was sporadic with the ball, couldn't get it where it needed to be. He was throwing dots. So, Clemson fans, I would be very, very, very confident and very excited for what to see coming up. Now, I hate that you're going to a bye week after this. You have this great showing, and then you kind of kill a little bit of that momentum. But that bye week is also going to be very helpful. We lost Peter Woods to a chop block in that game. He's day-to-day. I don't know how bad day-to-day is because Dabo tells the media you're either banged up day-to-day or you're out for the season. So he's day-to-day. So I don't know if day-to-day is worse than banged up or better than banged up. And then Tyler Brown also rolled his ankle. And then if you want to talk about any sort of negativity, I thought the defense looked a little lackluster at times. They were struggling with run fits and finishing tackles. Shout out the freshman Sammy Brown. He had 11 tackles, led the team in tackles. That's phenomenal. So I had to throw some Clemson in there. And then also I wanted to say condolences to the Overton family. That was awful news about DeAndre Overton losing his life way too soon this weekend. I didn't have the pleasure of playing with him. He came after me, but just senseless for someone to lose their life. I thought Dabo and team did a good job, paying homage to him. Putting flowers on his team captain plaque on the Tiger Walk, and then letting the two number 14s lead the team out. I mean, just a terrible situation for a family to deal with. So condolences to the Overton family.
Let's move forward to this weekend. A little bit of a subpar schedule, but that doesn't mean that there won't be plenty of action. There's weeks like this, when we look back, end up being some of the biggest impact because you never know what's going to happen. We've got some interesting matchups, and one team that loses could be severely impacted for the rest of the season. We'll start off here. Alabama is traveling to Wisconsin. I feel like we're not hearing enough about this. Alabama is traveling up to Madison, Wisconsin. We don't see SEC teams travel up into Big Ten territory too often. Alabama's done it a couple times. They've traveled up to Penn State a while ago. LSU has gone to Madison in the past. But other than that, we haven't seen traditional SEC teams. Texas just went to Michigan. But that was a Big 12 team when they scheduled it. But you don't see many of these teams travel up and play some of these traditional Big Ten teams. I know Alabama is supposed to go play at Ohio State, or I think Texas plays at Ohio State next year. And I believe Alabama is also supposed to go play Ohio State. Alabama going into Big Ten country. Does Wisconsin stand a chance?
No. And the reason why is Wisconsin had 2 get-right games to start the season before they played Alabama, and they did not show me anything. They almost lost to Western
Michigan. They didn't get right.
They did not get right. And maybe this is their right. Maybe they did get right. Maybe this is exactly who they are this year. They barely beat Western Michigan. Yes, they won by 14 points, but it wasn't like that going into towards the end of the fourth quarter. And then you play South Dakota. Not South Dakota State. Shout out the Jackrabbits. But South Dakota. I don't even know what their mascot is. You know what their mascot is off the top of your head, Jake?
They are the Coyotes. I did look that up.
Yeah. Who could forget? You beat them by 14 points, which, again, if anybody's heard of South Dakota's football team, hats off to you. You are much more of a sick human being than I am. So you didn't show me anything. Ches Malusi has struggled immensely. He's not running the ball very well. He's averaging 3.8 yards per carry. The defense has looked okay. I think if you have any sort of saving grace, the Wisconsin defense is looking great, are looking decent. But again, you played Western Michigan and South Dakota. I think Alabama's about to have their way with them. I do have an underdog pick in this game, and I will talk about that later. But just know it has something to do with Alabama's offense versus Wisconsin's defense. And maybe the person who throws the ball and who also runs really well. But no spoilers. I don't think Wisconsin has a shot.
I would love Wisconsin to make this game competitive.
Me too.
I'm not seeing it from Luke Fickell yet. We saw what he was doing at Cincinnati, and it just doesn't feel like things have clicked for him at Wisconsin yet. I mean, he's in his second season here. Last year wasn't great. They went 7-5. They were competitive in a lot of games. Last year against Iowa, they lose. Last year they lose to Washington State. They lose to Indiana. They lose to Northwestern. They win Nebraska. They lose to LSU in the bowl game. Like, this just does not feel like the Luke Fickell teams at Cincinnati. And this is a game where if they win, Luke Fickell pole vaults his name back into consideration for everything that he is relevant once again. Wisconsin just feels like they haven't been relevant in about 5 years.
Right. And I also find it, to his defense, Jake, you're going from a power run team who really just leaned on the pro style offense, running the eye, getting big hog mollies in there and just running the football, and going to a air raid. So you have to get your personnel in there. Yes, we have the transfer portal that makes that a little bit easier. But ask all these transfer portal heavy teams what that looks like. Year 3 is when I'll start again. Marcus Freeman, I gave him a little bit of slack, or I gave him some grace. I probably shouldn't have, but I'll get on to Luke Fickell if he's still struggling next year, because now he's got his guys in there.
I am concerned that Tyler Van Dyke is the quarterback. Van Dyke is fine.
That's it.
But that's about the best I can say about him.
That's his ceiling.
He's okay. His accuracy is okay. He doesn't throw the best deep ball. Wisconsin doesn't have the playmakers on the outside. Alabama is just clearly way more talented on both sides of the ball.
Yeah.
I mean, Jam Miller, I believe. Is it Jam Miller? Is that his last name?
Yeah.
He ran for 150 yards on like 10 carries last week. I don't know if Wisconsin has a defense that can slow down the rushing attack between him or Justice Haynes. Ryan Williams is looking phenomenal.
Yes, he is.
Jalen Milroe, you can say what you want about him, but the dude's thrown for 400 yards and 5 touchdowns in 2 games. They struggled with UCF early in the game, but you saw when it was time, they turned it on, they clicked, and they just scored at will at the end of that game.
Yeah. When they got the opportunity, they took advantage of it.
They just started going. That game was really close for a while, but then they just blew the doors off at the very end of the game.
Yeah, so that game was not as wide of a margin as the scoreboard showed at the end.
But you could say the same thing about this Wisconsin team, that they have not played well. They were only up 20-13, late in the game against South Dakota. They were struggling against Western Michigan. This just feels like it's going to be an ugly game. I would love for it to be close. I'd love for Wisconsin to be competitive in this, but it doesn't feel like it's going to be that.
Yeah, you know what? Strangely enough, my little heart, I've always had a little soft spot for Wisconsin. I like to watch Wisconsin play football. I always pulled for them a little bit. So this hurts my little heart to speak so poorly on them. But yeah, it's going to be a bludgeoning. It is going to be they're going to tar and feather them.
The possible best game of the week is going to come on Friday night. Arizona is going to travel to Kansas State. We think it's going to be the best game because they're both ranked, but in reality, I don't know if both of them deserve to be ranked. Arizona has not looked great to start the season. They went to the wire with Northern Arizona. Like, Northern Arizona is not like North Dakota State. Like, they are not the best FCS program. They're okay. This is an Arizona team that a lot of people thought was going to be a potential college football playoff contender. And when you are going toe-to-toe with an FCS team this late into the game, there's serious questions about them. And I don't know what to make of either of these teams.
Well, I know one thing. I know Tulane threw for 342 yards against Kansas State. And if we know anything about Arizona, they can throw the ball well with Fafita and McMillan. And I'm not going to go any further than that because I might be spoiling fantasy Big Jake. So I don't want to speak too loudly. People might hear me. So that's my biggest key in the game is, does Kansas State's pass defense show up to play a little bit better than they did last week? Because if you can't guard the receivers at Arizona, it's going to be a long day. if you can give them trouble, if you can put some pressure on Fafita, yeah, it's going to be a good game. I mean, and I think Kansas State maybe they're looking ahead a little bit. Maybe they're peaking a little bit to next week, especially with it being a Friday game. You lose a day of preparation. So I think Arizona crushes them. I really do. I've lost all hope in Kansas State very quickly. My love for the schools in Kansas has just been crushed in the first 2 weeks.
Tulane's not a bad program. I think we do need to understand that Tulane's not a bad program. We've seen what they've done the last couple of years. I know that they don't have Michael Pratt on the under center anymore.
That's probably for the better for them. He wasn't a great passer, but 350 yards, Jake. 350 yards passing.
Yeah,
that's a lot.
He was on it. Avery Johnson only threw for 181 yards, but they did run for 215. DJ Giddens and Dylan Edwards combined for over 160 rushing yards. So it's really a matchup of Kansas State's rushing attack versus Arizona's passing attack. Yeah, Arizona can pass the ball very well, but they struggled to get it going against Northern Arizona. I think this is going to be a close game. I think both these teams could also just completely stumble and it be a flop of a game. I also think that this game could go to the wire.
Take the over. Take the over. And this isn't Aiden Childs saying take it over. This is William. This is Moose saying take the over.
We got a rivalry game this weekend too. Oregon versus Oregon State, whatever they call it now, but formerly called the Civil War or something platypus now. I think platypus, battle for the platypus, something platypus. Who knows what it is?
Platypus eye.
Yeah. Oregon travels to the Beavers. Am I wild for thinking that this is going to be another close game because Oregon just hasn't shown it yet?
I don't think you are. I would have said that last week before the Boise State game. Also, by the way, we need to make a t-shirt that says "Don't sleep on the Beavers." That would be a wonderful, wonderful t-shirt, by the way. So write that one down, Jake. Write that down.
Got it.
Yeah, no, I wouldn't be shocked. I don't know what to think of Oregon State. They emptied the cupboard when Jonathan Smith left last year. Their highly touted quarterback went to Florida State. Damian Martinez went to Miami. And then their backup quarterback, Aiden Childs, went with Jonathan Smith to Michigan State. And then people got drafted. And then I don't know what else is left there. So I'll tell you what, I don't know much about this Oregon State team. I do know Oregon has struggled to play disciplined. We've talked about it already. So if they go in there and they do that again, it's at Oregon State, correct?
It is at Oregon State.
Yeah, I think that makes a big difference. I think this game is close, but I think this is where Oregon gets right and they kind of pull away late.
Oregon State, they shut out San Diego State last week, winning just 21-0. But the fact is you shut out another FBS team. It's not easy to do. No matter how much you want to say, pulling a shutout is difficult. And San Diego State is not a bad program. Will they make a bowl game? I don't know. But the fact is you won 21-0. Is it flashy to only score 3 touchdowns? No, it's not.
They don't ask how, Jake.
They don't ask how. They just ask if. And their quarterback, Giovanni McCoy, actually came from Idaho. He was a 2-year starter over in Idaho. Has done fine so far. Oregon State has relied on running the ball. They ran for 237 yards last week on San Diego State, and they only allowed 109 yards total or 199 yards. My bad. 199 yards. 179 yards. I can't math. Less than 200 total yards. And they rushed for 237 alone, then passed for another 183. Right. They're rushing the ball very well. We saw that Boise State just found success running the ball. I'm saying don't be surprised if Oregon State is in this game late into the fourth quarter. Don't be surprised, because if they're going to use the bread and butter and run the ball, they ran the ball with 7 different guys last week. 3 different guys had at least 11 rushes. And so they're going to rotate their running backs. They're going to do it. So when you've got that kind of ability to keep fresh legs in there, I think Oregon State's going to be able to keep this game close.
Yeah, no, they control the time of possession. They take care of the football, and Oregon continues doing what they've been doing. Hey, this is game 3 in math. Even though this is not a math podcast, 3 is a trend. So if Oregon comes out there and they play undisciplined, they have a bunch of flags, they turn the ball over, they fumble again, then we know who they are, right?
We've already seen Oregon plays fast. They play fast. They either score or they punt. If that defense is on on the field for a lot, they're going to get worn down.
Yep.
Doesn't matter if they're scoring in 5 plays or punting in 5 plays. The defense is back out there in about the same amount of time.
Right, and especially if Oregon State's running the football very well, that's going to wear them down even more. So this could be a better game than I anticipated coming into it, and I think you did a good job of really painting that picture, Jake. Because honestly, coming into this, I didn't know what to think. I didn't know what to think at all. But if Oregon State can get that rushing attack going, it's going to be tough. Also, I wanted to add, I forgot to throw this in there when we talk about the Clemson game. I specifically wore this Spartanburg High School coaching T-shirt to give a shout out to Tyler from Spartanburg. Just want to make sure you watch that game.
Are you best friends with Tyler from Spartanburg?
I can be. If I'm right down the road, bud. Hit me up. Come on down to GUR. I'll hook you up. But I wore this for you, Tyler. I wore this for you. Spartanburg built just like Clemson.
Just so you know, when Oregon State played Idaho State to start the year, they ran for 362 yards.
Okay. Yep. So they're going to. I mean, if they get that going,
they're going to run the ball.
Tough. Yeah. Run the damn ball.
They're going to run the ball. Final game we'll talk about here briefly, because even though it is the only ranked matchup of the week, nobody really understands how. Boston College is going to travel to Missouri. Boston College is ranked. Boston College's teams that they've played are combined 0-4, though. So do they really deserve to be ranked? I get you beat Florida State, but do they actually deserve to be ranked? Or are we just doing it because they beat Florida State?
Yeah, no, and we're going to find out. I think the craziest thing about this, though, and what we find out about Mizzou, is that defense better than it was last year. You lose the defense coordinator, Coach Baker. You lose him to LSU. Can that defense be better than it was last year? Because it was a weak point in that team last year. So we know they can score points. We know they're going to score points. Can Boston College keep up? I don't think so. But can Missouri keep them off the field? I mean, if, again, you talk about Oregon State, can Boston College control the ball, control the time of possession, and really just suck the life out of that offense?
Yeah, we'll see. I'm not super confident in this Boston College team. I think that they might be able to keep it close early, but Mizzou's got some talented players on that offensive side. Yep. They've only allowed 3 points so far this year. Now, they haven't played an incredible schedule, but this game is also in Columbia, Missouri. This game is in Boston. Might feel a little bit different. Boston College going on the road to Missouri does not feel like it's a recipe for success.
Hey, running the ball travels.
It does. All right. Are you ready to take your college football to the next level? Then check out Underdog Fantasy. It's the easiest way to draft your perfect team and make pick'em entries for each of the biggest games. We've been using Underdog for a while, and trust us, it's absolutely game-changing. Sign up today using promo code WALK-ON to claim your free pick, plus your first-time deposit up to $1,000 in bonus cash. It's just free money out there, guys. Visit UnderdogFantasy.com or find them in the App Store. You must be 18 or older to play, and terms will apply. I went 1-1 last week. You went 0-2, so hopefully nobody actually tailed us. Thank goodness I didn't actually put it out on the internet, or else we would have looked like real idiots if we had actually gone 1-3 last week. But this week, we got 4 picks that we're hitting on. Yeah. I'm in on this. And let's say the one pick that did hit was my sicko pick.
Your kicker pick.
Iowa's kicker had 7 points. We said over 5.5, higher than 5.5 points. He finished with 7. Absolute sicko pick, but it absolutely hit. I got another sicko pick this week. We're going Tyler Van Dyke lower than 173 passing and rushing yards. He hasn't been very good. He's only thrown for a little over 200 against terrible teams. And now he's going to play an Alabama defense that is ready to absolutely throttle him. Sacks count for rushing yards. I think he gets sacked a handful of times. I think he throws for 185, 200 yards, but gets sacked enough times that he loses enough to drop under 173. I don't think it's going to be very clear that it's going to be for sure lower, but I am confident that he's going to be lower because they don't have the playmakers on the outside. He hasn't been explosive against bad teams, so why do I think he'll be explosive against a really good team? Second one I got here, we know we hated on Colorado earlier, but I'm going to take Travis Hunter higher than, half a touchdown this week. It's a bounce back week. They're playing Colorado State. Colorado State does not have as good of a defensive line as Nebraska did. Travis Hunter is going to be able to get open. We saw what he did against North Dakota State. He's clearly the number one target for Shedeur Sanders. He's going to score this weekend. I think that one is a gimme. This one feels like a very honest and easy option. I'm very confident in both my picks. You should tail me. And if you want, you can add Will's in here too. And you can go 4 picks and get even more money.
That's right. Or you can fade me. You would have made a lot of money.
If you had faded him last week, you would have made money.
Yeah. So this week, I'm feeling really good. I got Noah Fafita throwing for higher than 257.5 passing yards. We talked about it earlier. Kansas State gave up 342 yards passing to Tulane. Yes, Tulane is a very good Group of 5 school, but 342 passing yards is a lot of passing yards. And with Noah Fafita's weapons, especially on McMillan, I thought that's a gimme. My next one, I'm touching the same game as you, Jake. I'm going up to Madison, and I'm taking Jalen Milroe to have higher than 261.5 yards passing and rushing. This one scares me a little bit because I think he might not play all 4 quarters. But I can see him passing for 225, running for 50, and me getting this. So I'm really banking on big, gaudy numbers from my boy Jalen Milroe. Always loved him, always have, always will this week. So fade me. If you want to be a sicko, you can follow us. I say follow us. I say take all 4 of us, but just make sure you use that promo code Walk-On when you do so. WALKON, promo code Walk-On.
First time deposit up to $1,000 in bonus cash and
that's a lot of money,
pick.
Jake.
Last week on Thursday for the first NFL game, they had Travis Kelce higher than half a receiving yard. That was an absolute easy money pick. All you need, sign up, get your free pick. They make it easy on your first one. Get you started, get you going, and then you follow us and we help you. Or at least
you essentially win your first bet because they're matching you. So if I put $250 in, I just won a $250 bet. They're going to give me $250 back.
Exactly. All right. Walk-On Weekly 10. I got to give it to you. You went 8 and 10 last week. 8 for 10. You went 8 for 10. 8 and 2 overall that week. I went 5 and 5. You went 8 and 2. I went 5 and 5. You took a 1-game lead over me, or 2-game lead over me because I was up 1. You have 15 wins in the season. I have 13.
Looks good.
I will say that we are actually, I believe we are both technically above 500.
Yep.
Yeah. We're both above 500. So if you're following us, you're making money right now. Just saying. So first game we got here, Memphis travels to Florida State. They are a 6.5-point dog to the Seminoles. Who are you taking?
This is one where I'm like, I want to take Memphis so badly, so badly, but I just have to think there's some sort of pride in Florida State. There has to be some sort of pride in Florida State to go in there and beat Memphis. So I'm going to give Florida State -6.5. I don't feel good about it at all, but I have to do it. I have to do it, Jake.
Is DJU still the quarterback of Florida State?
He will be this week. He will not be for very long.
Yeah, so give me Memphis. As long as DJU is the quarterback, I'm picking against them. I don't know if they're going to lose, but give me the 6.5 points. I think this game's going to be wildly close. Florida State is not in a good position. I don't like the trend that they're on right now. The arguably best defensive line in the country, according to Pete Thamel, is not looking like it. I do think they play better, but I think Memphis is a really good team, and I think they give them all they can handle. Second game, we got Thursday night game here. This is a completely underrated game. Arizona State's 2-0. They'll play Texas State, who is being viewed as a dark horse college football playoff candidate.
Yep.
Arizona State is a 1.5 favorite over Texas State here.
Had this been last week, I would have taken Texas State, and I wouldn't even batted an eye. But I thought Arizona State looked really good against Mississippi State. Now, some people might say, "Oh, Mississippi State's a stellar program." I don't care. I think Mississippi State is an SEC team. I think Arizona State handled business, and I think they can beat Texas State. I mean, this is a pick 'em. I'm going with my Sun Devils.
I'm taking the Sun Devils too. They rushed for over 200 yards last week. I'm not super confident in Texas State right now. They struggled week 1 against Lamar, and you could say that was week 1 jitters. They were just getting everything together. This past week, they beat down on UTSA. Jordan McLeod played very, very well. I like Texas State, but I think Arizona State right now, they have impressed me, and I'm going to take the Sun Devils as well. Third game here. Notre Dame travels to Purdue. They're a 9.5-point favorite. Can Purdue pull off an upset in the second week in a row against Notre Dame?
I wrote down on the picks that I have Notre Dame, but the more I look at this, Jake, I think 9.5 points is a lot to ask for this Notre Dame team. I really do. And the way they were beat in the trenches just makes me doubt them even more. And I'm going to have to go with Purdue plus 9.5.
I don't think Purdue is a very good team. I don't think Notre Dame's a very good team right now either. I think that says a lot about week 1 that maybe Texas A&M and Notre Dame, neither of them are that great of teams. But I'm going to take Purdue plus 9.5 as well. This game is in Purdue. Purdue is going to be hyped for this. I don't think Purdue wins. I do think Notre Dame wins this game, but I think this game is going to be close. Riley Leonard's hurt. The question is, do they pull him at some point? Do they put one of the backup quarterbacks, Steve Angeli or CJ Carr, in at some point? Remains to be seen, but Marcus Freeman says Leonard's going to go. Game 4, we got Arizona at Kansas State on Friday night. Kansas State is a 7.5-point favorite.
Give me Arizona.
Ooh, going back and forth, indecisive. You told the people earlier that Arizona was going to win this.
I did. I'm sticking with it. And you know what? I come back to the same stat over and over again. Kansas State cannot stop the pass. Has not shown that they can stop the pass. They need to prove that to me. I'm bear down, baby. Bear down.
I'm taking Arizona as well. I think Kansas State might win this game, but I think this game is a field goal game. Arizona can move the ball in the air. Kansas State can move the ball on the ground. Wouldn't shock me if the team with the last possession wins this game.
Yeah. They call me Arizona Moose. Love the state of Arizona.
Texas A&M is a 4.5-point underdog to Florida this weekend. Both teams suck. Who are you taking?
Florida was my dark horse team coming into this year. Had it been a bigger spread, I would go Florida. But the news that DJ Lagway and Graham Mertz are going to play, I just think that's really going to hurt Florida more than it helps them. Give me Texas A&M.
I have absolutely no reason to pick Florida, so I have no idea why I think they're going to cover in this game. Maybe I'm just blind hope that maybe they'll decide that DJ Lagway should get more run. I don't know. Texas A&M played McNeese State last week. Florida played some other FCS team, so we didn't learn anything about either team other than the fact they both lost their first game and they both didn't look very good. I don't know. I'll take Florida. It's going to be an ugly game. Another ugly game, but for some reason, College Game Day is going to South Carolina, is LSU versus South Carolina. And LSU is a 6.5-point favorite.
Yeah, I'm shocked that this is a game day game. So kudos and shout out to people of Columbia, South Carolina. Columbia will get up for this. Williams-Brice is a very tough place to play. I think South Carolina can win this game, but if they do, I don't think it's by more than a touchdown. And I think if LSU wins, it won't be by more than a touchdown. Give me South Carolina to cover. And this is making me feel disgusting. This is making me feel disgusting.
You were always a South Carolina fan growing up.
I have LSU on there on the pick'ems, but I just think about this game, and I really, really want to see the two defensive ends for South Carolina. The offense is what I'm gonna stick with what I have. I'm gonna stick with LSU, but man, this is tough, Jake. This is one of the hardest games to pick. I'm gonna stick with what I have. I'm gonna stick with LSU. I just think South Carolina's offense really needs to prove more to me this week. They looked good against Kentucky, but they still looked sluggish. That defense just really helped them out a lot against Kentucky. I want to see what they can do against LSU, which doesn't have the best defense, but is a better team than Kentucky is.
Do you know Nick Harbor has 0 catches so far this year?
I've heard a lot of things about Nick Harbor that just not giving me hope about his ability to play wide receiver.
I'm not confident in South Carolina. I mean, this is a must-have game for Shane Beamer. Like, his seat is warm. He's got to have it. He needs to win this game, which is why I'm taking LSU.
Yeah.
Got no. I think LSU is a better coach team. I'm not the biggest Brian Kelly fan, but the dude has continued to win games, and he's been in hostile atmospheres plenty of times in his career. I think he finds a way to win this game, and I think he wins this game by like 10 to 13 points.
He wins the games he should. That's the difference.
This is a game he should win.
He should win.
This is a game he should win. If we're being honest, this is a game he should win, and he should win it by at least a touchdown.
But do not be shocked if this game goes into the fourth quarter and is just a rock fight.
Yeah, it could be a very, very ugly game. Very ugly game. Washington State and Washington, the Apple Cup. We get the Apple Cup in September. The Huskies are 4.5-point favorites at home.
Give me Washington State. Give me the Cougs. I'm a big lover of the Cougs. They played a team very well last week. And by very well, I mean they beat them. And Texas Tech. It was Texas Tech, I believe.
Yes, they did. They beat Texas Tech by 21 points.
Yeah, and exactly. They freaking slapped him, open hand slapped him in the face. I think Washington's about to get the backhand coming back on the other end. So give me Washington State on this.
Yeah, their starting quarterback so far this year has only thrown 36 passes for 467 yards. He actually only threw the ball 19 times in the last game, but he ran the ball 21 times for 197 yards against Texas Tech. I also like Washington State in this game. I think Washington State wins this game. I think Washington, they haven't been tested. They played an FCS team in Eastern Michigan. Washington State has been more tested playing a Power 4 program in Texas Tech.
Yeah.
Alabama is a 15.5-point favorite over Wisconsin in Madison.
Yeah, I think this is Alabama. I think they beat them by at least 21.
Yeah, we talked about this game already. I don't think this is going to be close. I think this is a pretty easy pick. If there was a lock of the week, I would have it as this one. I think that this is going to end up being a blowout. Don't be surprised if the backups for Alabama are in the game by the fourth quarter. Oregon is a 16.5-point favorite over Oregon State in Corvallis. You like the Beavers? You like Oregon?
This is one of those games where, again, originally I came in thinking Oregon, but the more we talked about it, the more we analyzed it, the more I heard you sell Oregon State's program. Man, I don't want to sleep on the Beavers.
We shouldn't have previewed this because then you would have taken Oregon and I would have taken Oregon State and I would have had a chance to get one back on you.
Yeah, you honestly sold it on me. So kudos to you. I'm not sleeping on the Beavers. Give me Oregon State. 16.5 is a lot of points, especially if Oregon State's able to run the ball, as well as they have been. I still think Oregon wins this game, but 16.5 points, I don't think they cover that.
Rivalry game. First time that they are not in the same conference since I don't know when. Long time. I think Oregon State has a little bit of animosity here because they got left out. They got left behind. A lot of these players on Oregon State are still there. I know a bunch transferred out, guys like Aiden Childs and Damian Martinez. But there's a lot of guys on Oregon State that stayed because they hired the defensive coordinator who was able to help retain a decent portion of that roster. So there's some animosity. This isn't like Washington State, where Washington had to rebuild a whole team after everybody graduated or followed Kalen DeBoer somewhere.
Right.
So I think the Beavers keep this close. I think that this is a 7-point game in the fourth quarter. I think Oregon State covers this game pretty easily. Last game we have here is the unfortunate only ranked matchup of the week with Boston College and Missouri. And Missouri is a 16.5-point favorite.
Give me Boston College in this one. I think Missouri wins. But like I said earlier, I think the fact that Boston College is able to run the ball so well, I'm not high on Missouri's defense. So I think they will be able to control the clock well enough to not lose by more than 16.5 points. But I also wouldn't be shocked if Missouri just lays it on them. But no, I'm thinking Boston College can handle a little bit of business this weekend. Plus, I think, Bill O'Brien is really showing that, knows what he's doing. Good coach, great coach. And the helmet comms, again, we talked about it last week. He was an NFL coach. Him and the offensive coordinator for Boston College both have experience with using those helmet comms and getting everything in by the 15-second point on the play clock. So I think that's going to be an edge for them to not get beat by more than 16.5 points.
Yeah, last week they played Duquesne. That doesn't even do anything for me. And Florida State is bad. Missouri, they've only allowed 3 points this year. Luther Burden plays for Missouri. Brady Cook is still a really good running back. Theo Weiss, Mookie Cooper. They've got talented wide receivers. I think this is a blowout. I think that Missouri covers this, and I think they cover it pretty easily. I think 16.5 is a little too low. I think they win by like 28 points. I think Missouri wins by a lot. I think they win by like 28 points. I think the final score is something in the line of like 42 to what's 28 points? 42 to 20 or something like that. 42-14.
This doesn't have anything to do with the Cotton Bowl, does it?
No. No. If it was that, I would be saying Boston College would win. No. I think that this is going to end up being a blowout. So we had one question this week from your old buddy. What's his nickname? Beans?
Beans, Big Beans. Shout out.
Yeah.
He says, my team is the most unpredictable team in the nation and is hosting College Game Day, not to mention numerous high-profile recruits. How do the Gamecocks prove they can be legit? I'll let you take this one first, Jake, since you seem to like South Carolina a little bit more than I do.
Well, I think to prove they're legit, they have to win. I think anything short of a loss or anything short of a victory is a loss for them. I don't think you can just show up and play wire to wire and prove you're legit. If LSU had been 2-0 and beaten USC at this point, they would be pretty highly ranked.
Yeah.
They'd be a pretty credible team. But they did lose to USC. And I think South Carolina's got to win this game. It doesn't matter what the recruits think. The recruits sometimes have a different mentality of like, well, they're so close and we can get it. Shane Beamer's seat is warm. They're expecting results out of him. And they have to win this game. I'll be honest. It doesn't matter how you win. Doesn't matter if it's pretty. Doesn't matter what the score is. You just got to win. At the end of the day, you need to sit there and you need to be 3-0. To me, that's the only thing that matters. What your record is after the game.
Well, and I think to add to that, you'll have to string a couple more. I think you'll have to beat Texas A&M. You'll have to beat another one of those SEC teams that you have to face this year. Maybe you have a shot against Oklahoma after what they look like against Houston, one of the worst teams in football right now. But how do you prove you're legit? Like Jake said, you beat LSU. And I think it doesn't matter. Like you said, Jake, it does not matter. There won't be moral victories if you keep it close. But I think for the recruits, yes, there is moral victories because that environment. I talked about it earlier. I've talked about it often. Williams-Brice is a great environment in terms of loud, in terms of getting after it. Now, if you start getting ahead of that, if you get ahead of them at all, everybody goes home, right? You can get rid of them. But when they're there, they're rowdy, they're loud, they make it tough on the opponents. So I think if they come in there and they make it a game, I think to prove they're legit, win, lose, indifferent, if the offense comes out there and looks like a well-oiled machine, if they run the football well, if Lenora Sellers completes some passes and strings, completes 65%, 70% of his passes, then I start to think, okay, you got to worry about this team a little bit. But I'm still worried about Lenora Sellers and that offense. He sailed a couple against Kentucky that probably should have been picked off. He had one that was picked off, I believe. And I wasn't sold with him. I think the receivers are decent. I think Mazio Bennett, their freshman from Greenville, is their best receiver. Nick Harbor, like you said earlier, Jake, has been absent. The running game, I think Rocket Sanders is a huge upgrade to that run game over Mario Anderson from last year. He had a touchdown against Kentucky that was just a man touchdown. I think 4 or 5 people hit him, and he just walked through them like they weren't even there. And LSU's defense still left a lot to be desired. So I think the South Carolina team has a really good shot to beat LSU, and if they do, I think that would put them in a legit conversation. Maybe they have to beat a couple more teams. They have to be maybe 8-4 to be legit.
Yeah, you make a good point there, because even if they beat LSU, they have Akron next, and they'll beat Akron. Akron's not very good, but they have a very brutal 5-game stretch after that, with versus Ole Miss, at Alabama, at Oklahoma, versus Texas A&M, at Vanderbilt, and then versus Missouri. So that 6-game stretch right there is incredibly difficult. You can't sleep on any of those teams. Vanderbilt used to be the easy win. Vanderbilt is not an easy win right now.
Well, it never has been for Carolina. For some reason, Vanderbilt's always been South Carolina's Achilles heel. So, I mean, now you add that Diego Pavia's in there and doing what he's doing right now, that has to scare you a little bit as a South Carolina fan.
So I think you're right. 8-4 would be incredibly respectful, because they still have Wofford and then Clemson. So you assume that you beat Akron, you assume you beat Wofford. That gets you to 4 wins guaranteed. You got to find 4 more in there, whether that's LSU, Ole Miss, Alabama, Oklahoma, A&M, Vanderbilt, Missouri, Clemson. 6 of those teams are ranked. 6 of those 8 teams are ranked, and you have to find a way to beat 4 of those.
And, I did say, I'm pretty sure it was in the SEC preview, that I thought that South Carolina could beat LSU. I thought they could beat Kentucky. I thought they could beat A&M, and I thought they could beat LSU. You know what, Jake? I need you to backtrack a little bit. I need you to change my pick to South Carolina on the pick'ems. I've talked myself into it. I'm stupid. Garrett Nussmeier is an amazing quarterback. I like him a lot. I think he's going to torch. I think he's going to give that defensive back group a lot of work on Saturday. But God, for some reason, something's just telling me to stick with South Carolina this weekend, and I really don't want to do this, but I'm going to do it.
It's your childhood fandom getting to you.
No, I don't know what you're talking about.
Well, it's been another episode of the Walk-On Redshirts. Appreciate everybody joining in. Appreciate everybody listening. Make sure to go check on Underdog Fantasy. Use promo code WALK-ON. Claim your special pick and your first deposit up to $1,000, or you get a deposit special offer up to $1,000. Make sure to follow us on social media. Check out the walkonredshirts.com. There's like 8 or 9 different articles being posted every week. Everything from Group of 5, Big Ten, SEC, ACC, games of the week, bowl predictions, recaps, anything you probably
betting
want.
Guides.
There's betting guides. Anything that you could want, it's in there. Anything that you could be thinking of, we've got it in there. There's content every single day, multiple pieces throughout the week. Make sure to check out the walkonredshirts.com. Make sure to check us out on social media at Walk-On Redshirts. You can find William at Walk-On Moose on Twitter. And then make sure to subscribe to the podcast. Rate, give us 5 stars, like William always says. Maybe you're a 4-star listener. You might not be a 5-star listener. Yeah, but make sure to give us a rate.
You hit that bell, you're a 5-star.
That's true. Make sure to get notifications. With that being said, make sure to enjoy college football this weekend. We only got, a dozen more weeks. Enjoy it while you can. Hey, we dream all year for this. I am smoking some chicken wings this weekend. I'm pulling the smoker out. I'm making 100. I'm making 100 wings. I'm putting them on the smoker. I'm using a chicken and waffles seasoning for some of them. I don't know if it's gonna be good. I'm buying it, but I'm buying chicken and waffle seasoning because I want to try it out and see if it's good.
Jake, I can't believe I waited this long to bring this up. This is not an ad. This is just like my mind was blown. So I went from having DirecTV to YouTube TV.
Did your life change?
My life changed, and how it changed was the freaking quad box. The quad box is the greatest invention ever. I mean, whoever invented the quad box deserves the Nobel Peace Prize. When I tell you, like, all the different games that I normally would have to flip back and forth, and I would just give up because, like, well, this commercial I don't want to miss is part of the game, so I'm just going to pick a game and then whatever, go back and forth whenever I feel like it. But I'm really just going to stick to one game. I got to watch 4 games at the same time. I didn't have to watch commercials. I mean, my life has changed exponentially for the better because of YouTube TV. Thank you so much, YouTube TV. You don't realize what you've done for this poor little peasant boy from Sumter, South Carolina, now living in the upstate of South Carolina, who's always struggled with cable TV. Thank you so much.
William's going to enjoy his college football this weekend, and so should you. So for that, we will see you guys again next weekend.
See ya.